Hello and welcome to another video in the server-side Swift series using Vapor framework. So in this video, I'll tell you about the foreign key constraint between two tables. So a foreign key is a database key that is used to link two tables together. And a foreign key constraint identifies the relationship between the database tables by referring a column in the child table that contains the foreign key to the primary key column in the parent table. So the relationship between the child and the parent tables is maintained by checking the existence of the child table foreign key values in the reference parents table primary key before inserting these values into the child table. So in this way, the foreign key constraint in the child table that refers the primary key in the parent table will enforce database referential integrity. And referential integrity ensures that the relationship between the database tables is preserved during the data insertion process. And that will guarantee that a non-null or duplicate values from the selected column will not be inserted into the table, which will also enforce the entity integrity of our tables. So what that means in our periodic table app is that the foreign key constraint has a number of benefits. It will ensure that you can't create elements with users that don't exist, and you can't delete users until you have deleted all the elements that they had created. And you can't delete the user table until you have deleted the periodic table elements table. So let's see how we can implement this in our periodic table application. So you can download the starter project from the link in the description, and we can just go to our periodic table.swift file. So foreign key constraints are set up in the migration class. In the migration extension, we can add a static function, which is prepare. So this prepare function is implemented by default when we are conforming to the migration protocol, but this time we'll define it in a different way so that this function overrides the existing default function. So here we have implemented the prepare on function as required by migration, and this will override the default implementation of this function. And in this line, we have created a table for the periodic table elements in the database. And after that, we're using the add property to add all the fields to the database. This means that we don't have to add every single column to it manually. And finally, we're adding the reference between the user ID in the periodic table class to the user's ID value. So that's all you need to implement the foreign key constraint. Now, one thing you must check is in the configure.swift file, make sure that the user's migration model is implemented before the periodic table migration model, because we are linking the periodic table's user ID property to the user's table. So we must create the user migration first. So we can cut this and add this before the periodic table migration. So this is all has been set up. Now, just like we did in the previous video, we can delete the database and recreate that. So open up terminal for that, and we can add the docker stop Postgres command. This will stop our database, and after that we can remove this database, and finally we can create the database again using this command. And after we have restarted our database, we can just open up our periodic table app again. By using the Vapor xcode-y command. And we can just go ahead and run our application. And let's go to the Postman app to test this out. And we can copy this address and try to make a post request to create a new element. So the endpoints to that are API and element. And in the body part, we'll mention the parameters for our periodic table element. And the user ID. So for name, we can just add Mg for magnesium. And in the user ID part, we can just copy one of the user IDs that we had created previously. Now, keep in mind that this user ID, even though it's a valid UUID key, it does not exist in our database. So this response should show an error. So let's try and send this. So yeah, as expected, this shows an error which says insert or update on the table violates the foreign key constraint. So that means our foreign key constraint has been successfully implemented. Otherwise, this would have just created a new element regardless of this user ID being valid or not. So if we go ahead and create a new user and get the new valid user ID and put that here, we can create the element. So we can stop the app here. And that's it for this video. In this video, I showed you what a foreign constraint is and what are the benefits of a foreign constraint and how we can implement that in our Vapor application. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.